All right, Kung Fu versus MMA, instant KO. Why do the Chinese Kung Fu masters, Tai Chi masters keep getting knocked out? Now, this is a new discussion for me. I wanted to do this because you keep asking me. I get emails, I get comments all the time. Can Anderson Silva, or actually it's the other way around, would Ip Man beat Anderson Silva? Because in the movie, Ip Man beats Mike Tyson, right? In one of the movies. Who would win? Conor McGregor or Bruce Lee? Bruce Lee in his prime. Who's going to win? So this is a discussion. It's a legitimate question. Why? And I don't know if you've seen these videos. They're all over YouTube. Why do the Kung Fu masters, the Tai Chi masters, continue to get just obliterated, devastated? Hold on, I'm going to sweep the camera here. They keep getting knocked out instantly. Instant KOs or within seconds, and it's not even a fair fight, right? And so you keep asking me, and so I'm asking you. This is a community. This is an international, virtual, global dojo. And what do you think? I'm going to tell you what I think, a couple things, but I don't know everything. You guys usually know more than I do, or at least as much. You have different perspectives, different ideas. But why do the Kung Fu masters continue in China to sign up for these fights against even a decent MMA fighter? Even not a decent MMA fighter. Hello, Kathy. It's good to see you. But they get in the ring and they start doing their Tai Chi or whatever, whatever it is. Or they get in their Kung Po. Remember that old blood sport movie? They get in some position, right? Whatever the Bruce Lee stuff, the Kung Fu stuff. And it's hard to understand coming from this perspective because I know we figured it out when the Gracies first started coming up in the 80s to our tournaments, 80s and the 90s, and started just whipping everybody, just choking everybody to sleep, right? Choking everybody out, giving them the arm bar. And then you get this karate guy, he'd stand up and shake it off. And he's like, wait, I need another chance. I need another chance. And then, he'd get ready because we were convinced pre-Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, because I grew up in that area, pre-Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Taekwondo. I know it's funny, right? Especially if you look at Taekwondo now, but Taekwondo, Tang Sudo, all the different Hunggar, Kung Fu, all of the, who's Ed Parker's system, all these different Kung Fus, different karates, even the Kyokushinkai guys. It's hard to say, right? Coming off out of Masoyama. Masoyama would grab the bull by the horn, snap his horns off, break his head. And we all thought, well, we had that one punch, right? And, I am a little like Thanos in some ways. I can't tell you, I can't tell you which. It's not that way, but I can't tell you which way. Anyway, so the question, it's a real question. Parker Kempo, thank you. Please put it in the chat. And then later, this is a discussion. I want to know what you think. These we keep seeing these videos are still coming out where some Kung Fu master or Tai Chi master of a super high level thinks that he can beat. Yeah, well, no, that's true. And so, and there's a lot of speculation. Did the Gracies set this stuff up? But I'll tell you, because I know some of those guys, and I remember when that was happening, that we really, truly had no ground game, no idea. If you were a striking martial artist, you might be a great karateka, great martial artist in karate style, Taekwondo style, Kyokushin. They used to kick the baseball bats in half. They still do. They had 100-man kumite, except they never punched each other in the face. But you could kick in the head, and sometimes that's a lot worse. All right, Tai Chi's national fighting art. There's one, right? I don't think they're ordered to fight, though. I mean, can the Communist Party in China be that stupid that they really think that some Tai Chi has some magical, mystical powers? I mean, they're atheists. I'm not trying to be mean, right? I mean, China is a communist country. The leaders are atheistic. If they're not an actual atheist, they might be closet Christians or Buddhists or monks or Muslims or whatever. But they, it's not like they believe in a higher power other than the Communist Party. And they may be ordered to fight, but why would they order them to fight if they have any common sense at all? They know you get one guy in there who knows how to fight, who has been hit over and over and over again in training against Tai Chi. Have they ever seen it? Did they ever go down to the park and watch the Falun Gong, that cult out there doing their Falun Gong They've locked them all up in jail anyway. But hello from the UK. It's good to see you. All right. So what do we have? Not sure. Love your videos with your website. Oh, good. Appreciate that, David. Sound like Thanos. Why can't I snap? My fingers too sweaty something? There we go. Parker Kimpo. Yeah, that's Ed Parker style. There was a rumor going around. I don't know if this is true. Ed Parker supposedly in Hawaii hired some guys to jump him like a street thugs and stab him. So when he was dying of cancer, it's probably another Bruce Lee myth, right? Yeah, but you're right. So back to the Gracie. So Riley, great point about the Gracies. Eventually, when it became more codified, when we all started to figure out, you got to learn how to at least grapple. And I wrestled, right? My first martial art was judo. And then when I got to high school, I wrestled. And when you know how to wrestle, a lot of and it's not that it doesn't work, but it's a good supplement to striking. If you know how to strike really well, you know how to move your feet, move your hands, move your legs, and then you know how to sprawl, you know how to stop some of the takedowns, and you've got a good, powerful grip. It's hard for some of that stuff to work on you. Zhu Xiaodong, I don't know who that is. Yeah, so maybe it's their national. Yeah. Isn't that funny, John? It's Sakura. In you guys know the story of Sakura. They made a movie. It's a Kurosawa film. The guy that did Seven Samurai and all the movies that Star Wars is based on came out of this guy, Akira Kurosawa, in Japan years and years ago, black and whites. And he did a movie, Sanjuro. And Sanjuro is the Japanese judo player who learned from the founder of judo. And then he went to Brazil at the request of the president of Brazil. And then he fought, and he brought a whole team of like college judo players, and they fought the Gracies, and the Gracies just snapping arms and, snapping necks and choking people out. But they wanted to get to the coach who had never been defeated. He was just like a gifted judoka, right? A judo player. And Sakura and Sakuraba. Yeah, we'll talk about Jeet Kune Do. Oh, we'll talk. We're getting into the Wing Chun and the Jeet Kune Do, and I'm going to tell you my opinion, which is often wrong. So I'm just going to throw that out there right now. Sometimes, start talking. That doesn't necessarily make it true. Remember that. You hear someone saying something just because it's on the internet does not necessarily make it true. All opinions. I'm often wrong, and when I find out I'm wrong, I say, "Hey, man, I was wrong." As my mentor Dan Pena says, I might be wrong, but I'm never in doubt. That just means you have a certain amount of confidence with what you're saying. Anyway, so this judo player goes over and he's playing judo against the Gracie, the old man Gracie, and he said he wasn't so old then. And Sakura was a little bit older, and he didn't want to fight. They wouldn't let him go home, and yeah. Anybody who's an MMA fighter or a boxer, because this is funny, you'll get who's that funny guy in Great Britain, more hyper than I am, more energy. Master Wong, Master Wong will talk about. He's a lot better now, but he used to do all these clickbait videos, and he'd say, okay, who would win the fight, Jeet Kune Do or the boxer? And then he'd get some lame boxer in there, who didn't really know how to box, but he was a big dude. And he could throw a couple jabs and crosses. And then he's like, you just come in here, and that's how you win. And after a while, yeah, you're right. Yeah, they will ruin the Chinese communists will ruin your life. I'm probably going to get kicked off of YouTube now. I mean, I should watch it, but this might be the last time you guys see me. Except I still live in the land of the free. I was a Marine, and I fought for this freedom. And then I right to say this. But the Chinese, the communists, they don't have rights. They don't have freedom. Anyway, so the guy comes out, the Kung Fu guy starts, or the MMA fighter, just beats the snot within seconds, just KO. And you can see in his eyes, sometimes he's got a little bit of pity for these national treasures. Okay, so there's one. Maybe this is one of the reasons. One of the reasons Fit Team. These things are really good. They don't give me, this is a local company. I think it's a MMA, multi-level marketing, but there's something in that. That's what makes me hyper. I just worked out a little bit next door. Anyway, this MMA player just like snap him up, snap him in half in seconds flat. And then the Chinese government supposedly just shut his life down, which you could expect they would do because he's embarrassing their narrative. Their narrative is one world under Chinese communism because it's far superior. And what would be more far superior than the one thing that they pride themselves in as a sport, as an art, which is the Tai Chi. Again, everybody's doing it out in the park. Over here in the States, you've got, I think it's like a law. You have to be 106 to be in the park and doing and I'm mostly joking because I used to teach Tai Chi, but none of my students were ever younger than, I don't know, 50 something, which is funny. I mean, I'm getting up there now, but they just, whatever. Yeah, I know, Adrish, I do know all the Wing Chun. Not all the Wing. I'm not going to say I'm a Wing Chun master. I've done a lot of the Wing Chun, and I practiced a lot of the Wing Chun. And for a long time, everybody wanted to do the 1-inch punch, the 1-inch punch. Bruce Lee punched Joe Louis, who was a great kickboxer here in the States, boom, in the chest, goes flying across at a tournament as a demonstration for the cameras. And if you can get a movie star to your crummy little martial arts tournament, and I'm speaking from experience, where you're struggling, just scratching the dirt to get a couple of morsels to eat, and all of a sudden you got Bruce Lee himself coming in, bam, 1-inch punching people, then you might go flying back across the floor too. And I'm not saying it was set up because I'm not accusing anybody of anything. But so number one, I'm trying to stay on track. Let's backtrack real quick because I know I'm all over the place. Brazil. Years and years and years ago. I think it was like 20s or 30s. Correct me if I'm wrong. And the Japanese judoka, never been beat, goes up against the old man Gracie, right? Old man Gracie can't beat him. And he finally bows out because he realized after like the third time he throws Gracie across the room and breaks something on him because he broke his arm. And Gracie gets up and sticks it in his belt. And he's coming at him again. And he's like, I'm going to have to kill this guy, and I'm not willing to do that. And so he goes and he gets on the ground and bows. And you guys are far superior. If you were a little, if you had a little bit better skill, you'd probably beat me. If you were a little bit stronger, you might beat me. And then that fighter went on to be a big time wrestler around the world. He was a big time wrestler, very famous back in the day. But then the Gracies went back to the mats, literally. And he's like, I'm never going to get beat again. And then they got really good, and they're still to this day. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is really, really good. 6'1" to 2 inches tall, 72, 73 inches plus or whatever. And I think I haven't weighed myself lately. I've been doing a lot of deep squats with the weights lately to get the hormones going. As you get older, you need to learn how to stay youthful and young. And the key is heavy weights and some squats. So I don't know how heavy I am. I think somewhere between 240 pounds and 250. And I don't know how many stone that is if you're in Britain. I used to get jealous. Everybody's talking about how many stone they are. I have never – it's hard enough knowing metrics, right? I don't know how many kilograms I am either. But I certainly don't know how many stones that is. You can tell me. Anyway, so where are we? Yeah, I did watch that video about Zhujiaodong. And but let's go back. Let's talk about Chinese. Why do the Tai Chi masters, the Kung Fu masters, why do they keep doing this to themselves, right? Why do they keep getting in the ring with a decent fighter? And I mean, they're great fighters. So I'm not discounting the Chinese MMA guys because they've learned, just like the MMA guys here, that you need to know how to strike and you need to know how to grapple. You need both. But there's one more aspect to that. There's striking, and then there's push hands. We used to call it slap fighting, and not in a like, and they call it not hubad lubad, but sticky hands. You ever seen the tournament and they get in let's see what you do this. They get in the Tai Chi stance and they do one of these, like they're doing some Qigong. And I do Qigong. I'm not against any of this stuff. I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying. The question is, this is for one thing. It's to build internal power and strength and all that stuff. But don't think that your Kung Fu and your yeah, that's funny. That's good, Idris. I'm not sure about Hikuda. Yeah, the Gmail is my last name, pasquinelli@gmail.com. I'll type it in there. But can't type and think at the same time. Type and talk. It's just they get in the sticky hands. You guys ever seen the sticky hands? And they start going back and forth. And they like slap them. And I'm exaggerating the silliness of it because it's not really silly. And I've done it with some good guys who are good at it. And I got good at it because for a while I really enjoyed it. Okay, 17 stones. Nice. I want to be as many stones as I can be. It's just my personality. As long as not a Jesse. I have a personal trainer, this woman from Scotland who's a professional bodybuilder. And she's in great shape. And she's older than me. And she's in much better shape than I am. And my wife's been going to her. My wife's had this massive, rapid transformation. Looks fantastic. And she said, "You want to work out with my trainer? You want to work out with Jill?" And I said, "Yeah, I would. It'd be fun, you know." And I love it. You always need a coach, right? Get a coach. Sticky hands. Yeah, it is. It is. And I'm not trying to say it doesn't work. But John, you don't have to agree with me. Sticky hands versus Wing Chun punch, trapping, the Hubad Lubad, trapping versus Chuck Liddell, right? Chuck Liddell, what's his name? Anderson Silva, John the Bone Jones. John Bone Jones takes that long, skinny, hard, bony leg and slides it upside your head, and you're trying to Hubad Lubad, or you're trying to sticky hands. It just doesn't match. It doesn't fit. Christmas was great. Thank you. Hope your Christmas was great. I forgot what it was. Oh, so I'm working out with Jill, the trainer, right, from Scotland. And she says to me a couple times ago, and she said, "Do you know what a Jesse is?" And I said, "I don't know what a Jesse is. What's a Jesse?" And she said, "You never heard of Jesse?" She said, it's like, it's a big dude, probably 17 stone. It's a big guy, but he's not really that strong, and he's not really that emotionally strong, and he doesn't really push himself, and he's more likely to eat a donut than he is to lift a weight. And I said, "What are you trying to say, Jill?" And she's like, "I'm just saying you could move a little bit faster. You could lift a little bit harder." So I got it. So like I said, I'd like to be 20 stone, I guess, as long as I'm not a Jesse. That I had to throw that in there. All right, yeah. So Chuck has a Hackelman. What John Hackelman, Chuck Liddell's trainer. John Hackelman, very traditional, into the Kimpo, probably Parker style, right? And good. But Chuck Liddell's going to get in the cage and fight. Even John Hackelman himself is not going to say, "Now listen, Chuck, you're going to break my heart. If you step outside of the traditional rules of the Kimpo karate and you try to throw a knee or an elbow from Muay Thai, or if you try to if you sprawl or you learn how to armbar, which is not in Kimpo, not the way it's done in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, that's just going to hurt my heart." And no, he's like, "Yeah, we do call him." Well, Karen's a little bit different. We call him a Nancy. It's politically incorrect. Completely. Don't call anybody a Nancy. That's incorrect. It's politically incorrect. Karen is this new thing that the left came up with, I think, to say, like some person who asserts herself or himself in a negative way. And I may have been called a Karen one time at the Target store when my mask was not on my face. And I walked in, and there was a very timid man who was in, and I don't know what it was. It was something about him. And my mask is itchy and hot, and I don't have the COVID, and I've never had it. And I take a lot of vitamin D, and I'm healthy. And I just took it off, and I was, trying to getting some prickly under there. And he's like, I can't even do it. He says something like, we're going to have a Karen incident. And I thought, me or you, buddy? Because, I'm fine, anyway. So, yeah. So back to what John's saying. And this is a good point. It's all good. Learn the Jeet Kune Do. Learn the Kung Fu. Learn monkey style. Learn drunk style. Learn all the Kung Fu you want. And Taekwondo. And Tang Soo Do. And Hapkido. But understand what it's for. There's esoteric, which means it's like really interesting and it enriches your understanding of the world and life. And then there's aesthetic. It's cool looking, it's pretty, it's interesting to watch, it's interesting to see. And then there's practical, right? And there's practical means it's got to work for self-defense. And then there's sport, the sport aspect. So boxing in the ring, there's a referee, there's a bell, ding, ding, ding. It's timed. Can you find some value in each one for self-defense? Absolutely. But back to the original question. Why do these Kung Fu masters keep getting knocked out? Like, can't even do it today. I thought I had the Thanos fingers going. There we go. Like that. There we go. Instant KO. Hey, that's a Thanos thing. Maybe Thanos is sitting in the corner. He's watching this Tai Chi guy, and he's bouncing around with the wind in the butterfly. He's got the butterfly Kung Fu. And then the MMA guy just comes out with his basic footwork, and then bam, bam, bam. And then Thanos is, that's it for him. And that's a joke because that's not what it is. Tips, get started. Your biggest tip is, well, yeah, I mean, and that's because Bruce Lee just didn't punch enough guys. He never tried to punch me. I know I was probably a baby when he died or something. Your best stick spinning tip is don't wait to start. Don't wait to start. Start now. Get a stick. Pick up a stick. I got a stick here somewhere. Here, you get a little stick. Spin the little stick. Just do that, right? Spin the little stick. If you have a longer stick, spin the longer stick. But don't wait. Grab a stick, start spinning. That's my number one tip. And then go watch over 600 videos just on spinning on this site or on this channel. All right, back to the thing. Yeah, learn it all. Well, but here's the point. If you want to fight the MMA guy and in your mind, for whatever reason, and this is funny to us, traditional martial artists here in the States and probably mostly in the West, to see what's happening in China now, because it's like, is it arrogance? Do they truly believe that their Kung Fu is that good? It's not. It's not that good. Not against the MMA fighter, not in that kind of competitive match. Is it good for general health? Yes. Is it good for circulation of the blood? Yes. Does it develop greater chi and ki, or whatever you want to call it, whichever your style is? Does it help with maintaining your posture and so that you age gracefully? Yes. Is it aesthetically pretty? Yeah, especially wushu. Wushu is athletic, acrobatic, beautiful. It's fun to watch. You see it in a lot of different, that glare is getting me back there. A lot of different movies, right? Tai Chi. Once you become an old geezer, go to the park and Tai Chi to your heart's delight or whatever. And that's mostly a joke, I know. Tai Chi is really good. It's good for stuff too. But yeah. What's wrong with my fingers today? Probably got some lotion on or something while I was, because during the COVID, you wash your hands 24 hours a day, they start to dry out. Put a little lotion on. Never had to put lotion on. Yeah, carry a big stick. Yeah, good idea, Kim. Anyway, so number one is my theory. Like I said, don't take it to the bank because I'm often wrong. But number one, I think that it's Chinese Communist Party propaganda telling their people, their own people, hey, we're just superior. We're just the best. And why wouldn't you, right? We did it in the United States with John Wayne and Clint Eastwood and Audie Murphy. You guys don't know Audie Murphy. Some of you do. But all these old movies, right? Back in the day, we put these movies out around the world. America's the greatest, the greatest, greatest, greatest. That's what governments do, right? So it's not a problem that Chinese do it. That's just what they do. And so if they, yeah, absolutely. No one's good enough to never take a shot. You're always going to get hit. Good point, John. And we all, you punch the makawara and you make the bones stronger so that you can strike things and you break bricks. And all that's legit. It's all valid. Especially like you watch the 100-man kumite. But again, there are basic fundamentals of boxing and MMA or Muay Thai or grappling and that you have to know if you're going to get in the ring and fight the MMA person. So number one, I'm going to say Chinese Communist propaganda. and I know I'm probably going to get banned. I'm going to be kicked off of YouTube because somehow an American company doesn't like it when you talk bad about the Chinese Communist Party. And I'm not talking about Chinese people, great people. I'm not talking about Kung Fu. I love Kung Fu. I'm just talking about like why are Tai Chi people getting knocked out instantly over and over and over again. It's still happening. These things are still popping up where you get these Kung Fu guys who are just, it's like they're clueless. So that's number one. What else do we have? Anybody else have any ideas? Why do these guys keep getting knocked out? I'm gonna say number two. Who is the best? Riley? Ed Parker? We're talking about Ed Parker. We're talking about Sakuraba. We're talking about I've trained in MMA or Muay Thai. I love it. I still think Taekwondo's got a harder kick, though. I got to be honest. And I know that there have been some videos that show, they somehow measure it with scientific devices, and they have the MMA guy kick it, and then they have the Muay Thai guy kick it, and then they have a Taekwondo fighter kick it. And I've been hit. Oh yeah, Muhammad Ali was the best for sure. I've been hit harder by Taekwondo people by far, like in world champion level, than MMA guys, or not MMA, the Muay Thai. And I know that they kick trees and stuff, right? And I've never kicked a tree. I saw one the other day, and I thought I could kick that tree. And I kind of felt it with my hand. I thought that would be really stupid because, you see it in the movies, and they're kicking the, what are they, palm trees. And then down here in South Florida, everywhere around my house and everywhere I go, palm trees. But they're like this big around, and they don't move. They're like kicking cement. But I still thought, maybe. And the last time I was punching on it, I got all these little splinters in my hand and my knuckle. I was just messing around, and I had to pull them out with the tweezers. So I was probably kicking the wrong kind of palm tree. You probably have to kick one in the Philippines or in Thailand or something like that on the beach. All right, overconfidence. Yeah. So, but who's saying it? Why are they believing it? Because we learned our lesson here. Maybe it's, and I think that's what. Who's the guy? Dewey, Ramsey Dewey. Have you guys seen Ramsey Dewey's channel? It's interesting to watch. You got to get past the pacing. I have to get, not you. I had to get past the pacing because I'm just hyper that way, and I think he's more measured and mellow or something, which is cool, which is good for him. So I watched his, and then mesquite trees. I have to try that. Yeah, gorilla arthritis fists. I love it. Yeah. He probably has them now. He probably can't open his hand, right? I've hit way too many things over the years. All right, you want a tip? Go to MMA gym for beginners. Talk to the instructor. If he's a jerk, if he has no personality, or if he stinks, you don't want to smell that. If the gym floor is dirty, ask him. And this isn't about COVID. You just don't want to get ringworm in your face because you're on the ground grappling around. And the guy's, and the ringworm's down there because the guy never mops it with disinfectant. So number one, make sure it's clean. Number two, make sure the instructor's not an idiot or a jerk or full of himself. And make sure they really know what they're doing because there are a lot of fakes and phonies out there. Not all of them, but there just are a lot of them. All right. Yeah, well, his are good because he was a Taekwondo guy. He was a Taekwondo fighter, fighting. I think he was in Massachusetts, and he was fighting nationally. He was fighting about. He's a little bit older than I am, and I never knew of him. It's just like Dolph Lundgren, who played the Russian in Rocky IV. I think it was Rocky IV. Dolph Lundgren was a great MMA or a Taekwondo fighter from Europe, and internationally he was decent. But the school I grew up in, there were a lot of world champions from that school. So we knew, so you heard about, or you knew all these guys. But yeah, I mean, just the power of a back kick, a good back kick, the power of a good roundhouse kick, and an axe kick, and a wheel kick. But wheel kicks, they're the only time you can hit somebody with a wheel kick is that they really don't know what they're doing. Yeah, Ramsey Dewey, man, he does know his stuff, and he's extremely smart, and I think he's missing part of his skull, right? Didn't he say? I watched this video, and he showed this nasty injury where I think he was fighting some guy. Go figure. In China, the guys are cheating by putting lead in their gloves. Who would have expected that? That's sarcasm. I'm not a big fan of places where you don't have where the government is communist. I'm just going to say it, communist government, where the rules aren't going to be fair, right? Not everywhere else. A lot of places there's the rule of law. That kind of stuff doesn't happen. Common sense prevails. People are not. It's just a weird situation. And I've been there, and it's funny. Their obesity rate just exceeded ours. Go figure. You would have thought, Americans the fattest in the world. Not anymore. The Chinese took that honor, but and you get to China, you can't see anything because of the smog. At first, I thought it was like, oh wow, it's really foggy here. And like, no, that's smog. And then every car is like a BMW, not the really nice ones, or a Buick. And then you see a Walmart next to an IKEA, next to a McDonald's, next to a Walmart, and you're like, where's the Great Wall? And then you go there and it's littered in Snickers and Coca-Cola. Not the whole place. I'm not saying the whole place, but China and Korea, or China and Japan. You want to go to two beautiful countries, Korea, go to Korea first, go to Japan second, or that other way around, and then put China on your list. Go see some cool stuff in China. China's a massive country. Lots of good people, lots of great people. But all right. So Ramsey Dew is amazing. Century Jummies. Yeah. No, for sure. That's a great question. I strike them every single day when I have classes. I put the students on them, and they do. They take a beating. When they first came out, I've had bags since the first year they brought them out, like 30 years ago. I'm getting old. But when they first came out, they had a lifetime guarantee because they were so well made, but then we broke them really fast. So they took away the lifetime guarantee after about the second or third year, after everybody kept sending back the bases. But the tops, it's a really nice, thick, coated vinyl, and it doesn't, you can destroy them if you set out to destroy them. But if you use common sense, you're doing proper technique, it's more of a slashing technique anyway, then you're not going to, knocked him out, broke his skull, and woke up and he didn't have part of his skull. Now he can't take a hit like that anymore. I thought, man, that's just not worth it. But all right. So the bags, great option. If you're interested, send me an email, pasquinelli@gmail.com. It's up above, and I'll send you a link to get a bag. But Kung Fu itself is not a bad martial art. It's like everything else. Taekwondo versus the Western boxer, right? If you make a video about that and then you show all the ways that Taekwondo can win, that's silly. People do. They make those videos all the time. Can Jeet Kune Do? Well, think about it. Ip Man. This is my second reason for me. It's the Ip Man movies and the Bruce Lee movies, and who funds all the movies in Hollywood now. This is the fact. I'm not making this up. It's like 60% come from movies that are come from companies like Tencent and Jack Ma, who's disappeared or whatever, Alibaba, and then all of the other Chinese Communist Party owned companies that fund American movies, like the new movie with Tom Cruise. He's fighting the fighter jet. What was that? Top Gun. So Top Gun, in the first Top Gun movies, when I saw when I was a kid, he's fighting the American way, and he's fighting the American fighter pilot Navy, but he's got the jacket on, and on the back, he's got the 4 flags. He's got the American flag, and I think it's the Korean flag, Japanese flag, and the Taiwanese flag. In the new movie, which is funded mostly by Chinese companies controlled by the communists, they have blurred out the logo, the flags, the 2 bottom flags, which is the Japanese flag. They changed the way it looks, and the Taiwanese flag. So you're saying, well, wait a minute. This is a movie about an American hero in America, made by Americans, and the Chinese blurred out why would they do that? Well, they're communists. It's propaganda. It's whatever. So number 2, Ip Man movies and Bruce Lee movies, right? Bruce Lee in the Ip Man movies. And which Ip Man movie was it that I'm sure Joe I would have liked to fight Joe Rogan back in the day in Taekwondo, for sure. All right, good. Work out now. But I fought guys that probably fought Joe Rogan, and he was really good according to the videos and his stories, but I'm sure he was. I agree. Who trains the most? But it goes back to the Gracies. Like I said earlier, like when we first started seeing the Gracies come out, there were great martial artists who trained, totally believed, in their style, right? Whether it was Taekwondo, karate, whatever the style was, Kung Fu, and great strikers and won consistently in their own style. But then they'd fight the Gracie and they had no idea what was going on. They could take a couple, that's it. Ip Man 3 fights Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson could be 96 years old, had a stroke, half of his body doesn't work. And I'm not making fun of stroke victims, but only has one good hand, can't stand on his leg, and he's in the bed. And Ip Man could come up with this chain punch, and boom, it's over, right? That's what I firmly believe. But in the movie, Ip Man just knocks the tar out of him. And I think that, it's like everything else. It's like John Wayne himself, one of my heroes growing up, American cowboy, and he always, and I never knew this, he would walk, he had this leaning forward walk. And I just thought that, that's the way a big man walks, when you're a cowboy. It's because he had lifts in his shoes. They were pushing him forward because he wasn't as tall as everybody said he was, like Vin Diesel, like The Rock. The Rock's 6'4", 6'6". No, he's not. He's tall, but he's not that tall. It's propaganda. It's a lot of. So you have to learn, and the only way to learn is to practice, but involve yourself. And this is my suggestion. This is, again, I could be wrong, but if you can get into something like boxing, or MMA or Muay Thai, where you actually are practicing martial arts or self-defense, and you get hit, and you have to hit, and you get hit. If they're much taller than you, you have to close the distance as quickly as you can, and then you stick to them like glue. I had this guy. He was his brother was on the Olympic team in '88. He should have been on the Olympic team, but they took it from him. A lot of politics involved. I won't get into it. And he came up to about here on me. He was much better than I was. He had been training a lot longer. But we all trained together. And one time I remember one of the other young ladies who was on the U.S. national junior team, and she would yell, "Matt, get your hands up, And then, I would wake up. I would be knocked into the wall, and I'd be coming to because I got knocked out. I got knocked out too much. But we always videotaped everything, those big old camcorders. And it was, I know, but it's just silly. Mike Tyson versus Ip Man, right? Anderson Silva versus Bruce Lee. Who would win? I don't care what Bruce Lee practices and knows. He's not going to beat Anderson Silva. Not with any kind of Kung Fu, not with any kind of Tai Chi. That's my whole point. But it's fun to watch. The movies are fun to watch. It's that kind of weird propaganda thing. So he's like this on me. But he was a master. This kid had mastered the art of and had created a style with our instructor, who was an Olympic coach, and had created a style where, he would literally, I would be throwing a roundhouse kick, and his leg would wrap under my leg and still hit me, and I couldn't hit him. But he had mastered angles and distance. Timing and distance beats anybody for the most part. So he would be able to, I would come in, throw a kick, and what he was working on, for going to the tournament to beat a specific person, so he would be on the Olympic team, was a jump back kick. And he would literally, again, he came up to about here on me, he would literally jump straight, body to body, straight in the air, back kick to my chin. And then when he knocked me out, it was right here. That's how high. His butt was right here, and his heel was right here. And bam, that was it. Good to see you, Van. Yeah, do some leg strikes. But one thing you have to remember, too, is that a lot of people are intimidated by someone's size, but it's usually the smaller, wiry guys that I've seen in my life, including my brother, rest in peace, who passed last year. And it's in here. It's in here. It has nothing to do with size. Now, size will still give you an advantage, but I don't know if you've seen these videos now. They have the strongest man in the world. And one of the guys, Eddie Hall. Eddie Hall is a British guy. So funny. I love watching his workouts. And he looks like he's got to be really short when he's standing next to the other strongmen. And these are like world's strongest men, right? So you've got who are the other strong men? Anybody watch these guys? Robert Oberst. So Robert Oberst is like 6'9", and then there's the other American, kind of a soft-spoken guy, but you can tell he's got a big temper. Yeah. So and Thor. So Thor is 6'9". Thor, the mountain from Game of Thrones. Thor Bjornsson, I think. I don't know. I think it's Bjornsson. And so Eddie Hall, British is the Brit, and he's won World Strongman several times, but he's from Great Britain. He's only 6'3", so he's taller than I am, and he's massive. And he's fighting against the mountain from Game of Thrones, Thor Bjornsson. Thank you. And they have a fight coming up, and you can see Thor Bjornsson doesn't seem like he's training as much. Eddie Hall's in there; he's training all. But I promise you, no matter how good Eddie Hall gets, he's not going to be as fast as somebody who is less muscled. The bigger they are, the slower they go. That's why Marcus Pujanowski, or Marius. And Marius Pujanowski was always like Jack. He was big, but he never had a lot of body fat. If you're 5'10", you don't want to be a heavyweight. I was a heavyweight at 6'1", almost 6'2", and some of the heavyweight, and there were heavyweight fighters who were a little bit shorter, but now heavyweights are 6'6", 6'9", and they are lean and they are as fast as lightning, and their leg comes up and down. And so if you're lighter, you should try to drop weight. Yeah, don't go for a heavyweight. Try to be as light as you can, because you'll be faster and then you'll fight lighter people. If you're built wide like I am, you won't have a choice. There was no way I could not be a heavyweight, because I'm the heaviest person. Jessica, how old are you? You're never too old, by the way. I have students who start with me all the time, 60s and 70s. That's one of the reasons that I opened the school down here where I am. I wanted to train with people in their 60s and 70s, and I've had people train. Never anybody in their 80s yet, but I've had people start at 76, and so you're never too old. And a lot of times people ask me that, and you're like 36 or something, but no, you're never too old. And why wait, right? Especially if it's either a passion or a need or a desire. You want to get in shape, and you don't want to just work out in the gym. You want to do something interesting. You should always get started. No, 16, you're still a baby. And in fact, martial arts was designed for teenagers and adults. It was never designed for 4-year-olds. 4, 5, 6, 7-year-old kids, 3-year-olds. Getting black belts has always been a problem, right? That's always been a problem. And it's ruined in the United States. It's ruined traditional martial arts that's not Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Karate and Taekwondo especially. And I go in, I was talking to someone yesterday, and she said, well, my daughter's a black belt. And I'm thinking, your daughter's 6 or 7 or 8, or she can't be much more than that. And I'm like, yeah, 66 is perfect. And she's like, and I didn't say it, but I was sitting there thinking, and it's not about maturity. It's that it's just too short, it's too fast for anybody. And it completely devalues it. And then all the adults who could get great value out of traditional martial arts, like Taekwondo, karate, or whatever, they won't do it because they see a bunch of babies in the gym, young people, no offense if you're young, with black belts. And they're like, oh, it's a kiddie thing. Black belt's a kiddie thing. And that's what we've done. I did another nunchuck video yesterday. I think, you know what I was going to do? I saw what is it? What's the new Marvel movie that's coming out? Shang-Chi or something. And I was going to show you, because I saw in the cartoons, he's fighting. I just whacked my elbow. He's fighting in this hand position, and I thought, I was going to show you how to do that. Yeah, there's a lot of goofballs out there, but you know what? Don't. You start nunchucks, do this and do that. Just outer orbital, inner orbital, put them together. You've got a figure 8. That's the best thing to do. And then when you're ready, then you can go into the negative grip and then I'll teach you how to fight like Ching Shi and the 10 Rings or something like that. And then there'll be another movie. And then everybody will be out there trying to fight like the Mandarin. Oh, that's interesting, right? The Mandarin's going to, and the Mandarin's going to, the Ching Shi, he's going to get out there and he's going to fight the Shang-Chi. Yeah, fight the, I don't know, who could we say next? I mean, Chuck Liddell was the guy that I always liked. Bruce Lee only did the same basic moves. And it's funny because if you look at Game of Death, he fights against Dan Inosanto. Dan Inosanto is in his 80s, still works out, still teaches, amazing shape, brilliant stick fighter, knife fighter, stunt fighter. And I'm just reading a little bit. Bruce Lee does the same thing over and over is what I'm saying. So like, for example, Bruce Lee has this move, which is a great strike. I mean, you have to have that move, right? And at one point he gets on the floor and into the dojo or into the dragon, whichever version you've seen. He starts whacking people on the floor on their feet. People always ask me, can you teach me punch a bag? If you want to make your knuckles hard, you can do the old style Makawara, which is and there's cheap ones. They sell cheap ones in martial arts stores where you mount it on the wall and you hit it. I wouldn't recommend that. If you really want stronger knuckles, go to a gym that has a heavy hanging bag and practice hitting. You need two things. A lot of people make the mistake. They just make their knuckles hard. And some Chinese Kung Fu guy I saw years ago, Xinyun. Remember the Xinyun? That's all the Falun Gong cult guys. They put that on. But the guy comes out and he has a piece of steel and he hits it and it shatters and everybody goes, whoa. And the guy I'm sitting with was my instructor, the Korean martial artist who's been around for a million years, 10th degree black belt in Taekwondo and all that. And he says, it was a fake video. It wasn't real. He doesn't really, but you know what you can do. And there's also a video of Bruce Lee lighting matches, right? That's for a camera company like Zeiss or something, like for a camera lens company. But you can throw up a tennis ball and practice whacking it. That's fun. It's a good way to cross train. Get a partner. They throw the tennis ball in different directions using different strikes, whack it out of the air, and that's a lot of fun. Taekwondo versus karate depends on who you can learn it from. If it's traditional karate, if you can get like a good Kyokushinkai school or Isshinryu or Shotokan, and they're very traditional, then that's very fun. It's very esoteric though. It's it's in its aesthetics, very pretty. There's a lot of intricate hand movements. Taekwondo, old style Taekwondo, pre-Olympics, when the money started getting involved and everybody started making it worse or whatever. Yeah, but it's all about the instructor. You have to find a school or an instructor who is safe. Number one, they're going to keep you safe. They have common sense. They don't think that they're the center of the universe. Can't be a cult of personality. If everybody comes in and bows to the master like this and brings them gifts or her gifts, washes their car after. I mean, I've seen it all. You just have to, Mudul Kwan. Yeah, so it doesn't have to be one style. It's all go in, and it's like anything else. If you said to me, I want to buy a car, should I buy a Hyundai? Should I buy a Kia? Should I buy a Toyota? Should I buy a Lexus? Should I buy a Mercedes? Then I'd say, well, what's your price range? What's your lifestyle? Do you need a luxury car? Do you want one to get just back and forth to work? Are you doing work out of it? Are you going to paint houses? You need a car you can get dirty? Those are the questions, right? But then the other question is, or the suggestion is, go to the dealership and drive each car and see which one you like. And so if you go into a martial arts school and they're like, no, you can't try it out, don't go to that martial arts school. Or if you go and you don't want a martial artist who can't be questioned. A lot of martial artists are like that. Don't question my authority. And they're pounding the table. You don't need that, right? Because you need to be able to ask questions. Yeah, Mudo Kwan, a lot of the Mudo Kwan schools, and again, Mudo Kwan, it could be Mudo Kwan, it could be any of the Kwans or any of the branches of Taekwondo, Tang Soo Do. It could be, and a lot of people don't understand how closely tied, like some Tang Soo Do and some old Taekwondo schools are to karate schools. They're very similar. They're not that far apart. The difference is the Taekwondo schools and the Tang Soo Do schools, they've de-emphasized a lot of the intricate hand motions and don't really understand anymore why you do. Some of the old masters do, why you're doing what you're doing. Like a really good Kobudo school, and they're hard to find because they're not as popular. It's not as easy to teach. Taekwondo expanded around the world the way it did because it was codified, it was simplified, it was so easy to teach. I mean, a martial art that's that easy to teach spreads very easily, but it isn't necessarily broad and deep in the techniques. You go into some old style karate schools, the techniques are really varied and vast and really deep, and the understanding takes years and years and years in practice. And they're far superior in quality, for lack of a better word, than some of the Taekwondo. But the difference is Taekwondo is simplified, cut down, and a lot of karate schools that you'll find around the country, especially in the States and in the West, they don't teach karate, they're teaching Taekwondo. But for marketing reasons, and even to this day, even though Taekwondo far has so many more people in it than karate does, worldwide and in the States, most people still think of karate. My wrestling coach was a catch wrestler, and he was a Greco-Roman wrestler, and he was an Aikido instructor. And so we learned a little bit of all that different stuff. Yeah, I mean, and martial and back to our original question, like, why do these Chinese Kung Fu guys, Tai Chi guys keep getting knocked out instantly when they go up against the MMA guy? And why do they keep doing it? It's not how do they get knocked out? They get knocked out because Tai Chi doesn't have an answer, cannot stop somebody who knows how to kick and punch and wrestle. Tai Chi, Kung Fu, there's not a Kung Fu out there. And Jeet Kune Do, and I know we talked about Jeet Kune Do, and it's a lot of people have a lot of fondness for Jeet Kune Do, so I'm not picking on it, or Wing Chun, or Bruce Lee, or Ip Man. But my theory is you have so much propaganda around, so many movies being made, money being made, but also Chinese communist propaganda pushing this idea that, the Wing Chun, the Tai Chi, even the Wushu is going to beat anything else in the rest of the world, including Western boxing, Muay Thai, Taekwondo, whatever it is, you name it. But when you get to the MMA, these guys have grown up, and girls, getting punched in every class, getting arm barred, wrestling, having the sweat, blood, tears. It's a harder workout. It's a way more vigorous, and it's more practical. And that's why it doesn't work. But the question is, why do they think it works? Taekwondo. It's funny. Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of people don't know, like, if they're which Kwan. I assume that's what you're talking about, right? And even when you go to Kukkiwon in Korea, which is the headquarters of the World Taekwondo Federation, which is highly politicized, bought and sold by money. And you'll go there and you'll see these 8th, 9th degree masters, quote unquote, this big, who can't throw a kick, literally, because in their country, India, often, no offense to India, they get paid by having that rank, and it's a power and it's control, but they're not necessarily they're not any good. It's not even that they're not any good. They're fakes and phonies. And then they paid the money for the 8th, 9th dan, and you're sitting there thinking, what does the Kukkiwon rank mean? And that's why I don't do it. I mean, I have the Kukkiwon card in the dan or whatever, but after a while, after I've seen with my own eyes, people that I've worked with and for, taking the money and sending it or not sending it, it's like there's no value there. There's no value there. But WTF, ITF, there's no the world has shrunk with the invention of the internet and all of this ability to communicate with each other, because it's a big global community. It doesn't really matter anymore what style, this style over that style. It really, really, really comes down to, if you want to learn how to do practical self-defense, something that actually works, my suggestion, learn how to box, Western boxing, even if it's 20, 30 hours. But, make sure you get into a program where it's not just cardio boxing. That's okay as a start. But find a system, find an instructor who will allow you to learn how to do basic good footwork, basic moves, and put on a helmet, put on a bodyguard, this part of the body, and get in a mouthpiece and get hit, take a hit, and have that feeling like, oh, I don't want to do that again, and then keep going. And then, oh man, I don't like this, and then keep going, and learn how to do that first. Daniel Cormier, I heard the name, but I'm not sure. Is that an actor? Is that a fighter? But actors are all actors, right? Actors in martial arts movies are always going to win, right? Like Liam Neeson. Liam Neeson is going to use some Filipino martial arts, FMA, basics of Kali, Salat, Arnis, whatever you want to call it, and he's going to break the snot out of people in like in the movie Taken, or the Bourne movies, Jason Bourne, just like the amazing stuff, but it's all choreography. Drunken boxing versus the Western boxer. The Western boxer wins. Drunken boxing versus Muay Thai. Muay Thai wins. Drunken boxing versus MMA. MMA wins. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the UFC, not because I have anything against it. If it's on, I'll watch it. I just don't watch anything anymore. If I have any extra minute, I'm trying to keep the lights on, literally, for like the last, since COVID. So I'm not really sure. Don't get me started on Krav Maga. I do have opinions on Krav Maga. I'll keep them to myself. No, that's not fair. Since you brought it up, born is just for fun. But the Krav Maga, right? It's the same complaint I have against like the 100-man kumite. Cool idea. And if you don't know the 100-man kumite, it's in Japan, and the Kyokushin guys are out there, and you literally fight 100 people, one at a time, and you go until you either leg sweep them or they don't want to continue, whatever it is, you score whatever the point is. I'm not that clear on the rules, but I get the basic gist. And at the end, you're bloodied and bruised. Probably half your bones are broken. So it's a legit thing. It's hard. It's difficult. You got to have a great desire to do it. You have to be physically in great shape. But they don't punch to the face. And if they did punch to the face, and you got somebody in there who had a great punch either naturally or was a boxer, the 100-man kumite would be a one-man kumite, or two or three, or however it took until you got to that one guy that knocked you out, right? Or was able to hit you in a way that made it stop. Or if you were that guy who had the boxing skills. And so Krav Maga, same kind of thing. And I've been in Krav Maga workshops. So I know I'm not just like speaking of what I've seen. I've worked out with the Krav Maga people when I was in the Marine Corps. The Krav Maga was popular with some of the instructors, and they love doing it. Get in the Krav Maga, and you get the Krav Maga line, right? And it's you, and you have this whole line. And then the person in the front has to fight their way to the back of the line. And it's like, yeah, but no one's punching them in the face. So that's my only criticism. Two criticisms. And one is, I'm sure it's cultural, and I'm not trying to, and I'm not against the culture. Yeah, Kyokushin Light, I like that. I loved Masoyama. He was Korean, by the way. Masoyama went to Japan during the occupation of Korea by Japan during the war, and wealthier families would send their kids there to university, Tokyo or whatever. But you had to take a Japanese name, which is why he has a Japanese name. But he was always racially profiled. He was always treated poorly because he was Korean and not Japanese. Oh, are you kidding? Other people are racist? Yeah, there's racism everywhere, right? And Pinkok Shalat, a great martial art. But like everything else, has its limitations. We all have our limitations in every style, but or like Savate or whatever. The Masoyama had to become that mean, tough dude who just kicked through baseball bats and smashed the horns off of a raging bull because he was treated so poorly in the tournaments and in the community because he was really Korean and not Japanese, even though he had assumed a Japanese name, which is why I think Kyokushin is just so aggressive and mean. And I think it's a great martial art, by the way, too. And I think they're of the traditional martial arts, Japanese style, Korean, like Taekwondo, Tangsudo, karate or whatever. I think they got it. They have the hardest strikes. They hit the hardest. They break the most, but they don't punch the face. They do for self-defense, but in the competitions, they don't. Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for being here, Ace. But back to the Krav Maga, great value there, especially if you think about like posture, the way they carry themselves, situation awareness, paying attention to what's happening around them, and just fighting back against an aggressor, against an attacker. Awesome. Great idea. You should do that. You have to do that, right? But the second criticism, the first one is that they don't punch the face in their training. And two is the arrogance. I'm an arrogant person. I understand, but I don't go around saying you don't need to learn anything else. It's just the Krav Maga and that's it. Because the Krav Maga, and then taking away the guns. It's like, yeah, there you go. Since I am at Bartitsu. Since you mentioned that the last time we talked, I've been watching the Bartitsu videos, and I got to be honest, I have an affinity for it. And it was Mr. Barton came back from Japan, and he had some jiu-jitsu, and he put it together with it's a brilliant idea. It's funny. It's just a very small, much smaller martial art, and it has a funny name, like you're in a bar fight, but it's basically Barton, right? Barton jiu-jitsu. But it is really good. It's really good basic principles of self-defense. And it comes down to that principles of self-defense over actual techniques, right? But that has nothing to do with what we're talking about. Since we're trying to figure out why do these Kung Fu guys, and Kung Fu is probably the wrong word. It's probably mostly the Tai Chi masters in China. How do they keep getting themselves in a situation where they're fighting some legit MMA fighter and they just get knocked out? So, no. I'm glad you brought that up. And this isn't a criticism of you. Is it feed or fed? Valiant. Because when the Gracies came out and they started choking out the Taekwondo guys, and they started armbar against the Hungar Kung Fu guys and the Kimpo karate guys and the Shotokan and the Ishinryu, all the fighters back in the day in the 80s and 90s in this country would go to these, they would call out anybody who'd fight them. And they go after the best strikers. And all these strikers had no idea of what to do when they got dumped on the ground. And then the Gracies are just grounding and pounding, and they couldn't do anything about it. They either got pummeled or they got choked out. And then some of these guys, because I'm not pointing at myself, some of these guys who fought against the Gracies, they tried those tricks. Wow, I'll stick my thumb in his eye, right? Or, I'll do that one death touch to his neck, or the dim mock, or whatever it was. None of it worked. I'm gonna hit all of his pressure points. I'm gonna get all the secret pressure points on the Gracies, and the Gracies just kind of, they'd feel a little bit of pain, and then just keep working their game until they choked them out, or they snapped their arm, or they got their foot in the lock, and because it does not work. There are no secret death touches. There's no Kung Fu, Tai Chi, or karate or anything else that has some special moves against somebody who knows how to cover up and throw punches and throw elbows and throw knees and take a hit. And it might, oh, yeah, welcome from Gainesville. You're just up the street. But we have to stop making that excuse, right? We have to start saying, yeah, I do. We have to stop thinking that we have some secret technique, that the only reason that these guys are losing is they're not allowed to use their secret agent, special special sauce, how to beat the Kung Fu guy with this one technique or that one technique or this, because they can't hit pressure points or they can't do, thank you, it's good to see you. They can't do a neck strike. They can't do a thumb to the eye or whatever it is. It's just, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. If all that stuff worked, fights in the penitentiary would be different, right? Prison fights. And they're not. Yeah, they're all basic and they're simple. It's aggression, it's violence, it's horrible stuff. But there's no guy that I'm sure there are a lot of guys that went to prison and they thought, oh, I shouldn't be here, but my Kung Fu is going to save me, or my Taekwondo or my Tai Chi or whatever. And so just my personal opinion. And again, I could be wrong, but I'm going to say that the answer to that question, because we all think it sometimes, well, maybe there's something that could have been done by the Tai Chi master, but the referee said, okay, no demmak, no touch of death. You can punch, you can kick, you can push hands, but you can't use the demmak. You can't use the touch of death. You can't use the eighth chamber of the Shaolin secret Kung Fu drunken style monkey fighting the kangaroo. You can't use that. But you can do anything else that you want, right? You can use the old British fisticuffs. What was it? Queensberry rule, the Marquis of Queensberry rules. You can only use those. You can't use, and I don't think that's it. I don't think that exists. So, but I could be wrong. Maybe you guys know something about that. All right. So what else? Yeah, boxing and submission grappling to karate. It does make a big difference. It makes it more fun. Way more fun. And that doesn't mean that you don't do the karate. You don't understand the value of it. Karate still has great value and benefit for your overall, for your strength, your health, your mental health. It's a moving meditation. It centers you. It focuses you. If anything, because you do both, you'll be better at all of it, right? But relying just on one thing. And you asked me earlier, like, how do I find a good martial arts school? Look for that. If you find an instructor who's like, you can't do anything else, you can only do this. Now, there's something to be said for do this first, get really good at this for a while, and then once you get a foundation, you can explore those other things, but I want you to do that first. That's okay, but it's like, you've been there for 6 years, and they're like, you went to the jiu-jitsu school? What's wrong with you? Don't you know that our Tai Chi, we do Jeet Kune Do. That's one style to answer all styles. That's an actual quote from a guy that I know who teaches Jeet Kune Do, who knows better. He knows better. He knows he's full of shite, but he still does it because of marketing. He does it to make money, which is a huge criticism of mine. In addition to, doing martial arts, giving little babies black belts, giving black belts to 3, 4, 5, 6 year olds. The other thing is, if you're going to do something for money, do it for money and say, well, I'm doing it for money, but don't lie and say, oh, well, this is the best style. It's going to beat the other styles when it's not. You have to at least be honest. All right. I'm laughing, 3-digit digger. Yeah. Well, Riley, I appreciate you too. I appreciate you guys for being here. Here's what I would love to do. I'd like to keep this conversation going, and I want to have more conversations like this. So send me your ideas. Like, what do you want to talk about? What can we discuss as a because I want it to be a discussion like this, not just me yakking at you. I wish we could have like the multiple screens or whatever, but yeah, practice skills properly when you can. If not, but don't wait to start. Get started with martial arts training now. Don't wait to start. And don't worry about which style. Get started here. And then, as you get going, you're like, oh, I think I also like to do this. And then do this. Oh, I'd like to do this. Don't jump around. Get really solid here and then add this to it. And then add this to it and add this to it. So, you have to. By HEMA, I think you're talking about like broadsword and quarterstaff and the mace and all those stuff, right? I don't, but I'm really fascinated by it. And I've seen it not just at Renaissance fairs. I know there's some schools. I think there's some schools down here in South Florida. But I am interested in all that. So, yeah, Wilson, exactly. Solid foundation is always important. But that doesn't mean that you can't do other stuff. And when people say don't do other stuff is really silly. Yeah. And John, to your point, when I was a Marine Corps military policeman, and for a short period of time, I was responding to bar fights and picking people up or whatever, I used come along techniques, joint locks, pressure points. This one, the mandibular, they work extremely well. With a direct command, I said, stand up. We're walking to the door. And it really does work. It really does work. So learn those and even Taekwondo fighting back in the day, right? Because there's a lot of kicks to the head. So you have to have a good guard. And only the guys who think they're really good fight like this with their hands down until they get knocked out. But your hands here. And it was a cheating technique, but you would punch and you'd hit that nerve over and over and over. And then his arm. I've seen Shadiversity. He's really good. He is really good. Great conversation too about different techniques and different swords. And then after a while, that nerve gets sore and that arm starts to drop. They don't even know it. And then bam, knockout, right? Wheel kick or crescent kick. And so I'm not against learning it. I think to learn all that stuff, learn everything you can. Yeah. And Kung Fu, complete lifestyle. I agree 100%. Body and mind, 100%. Everyday life health, 100%. Use aspects of it in the ring. And if you're going to fight MMA, learn MMA with your Kung Fu, put them together, and then you have something even better. So that's all I'm trying to say. Yeah, it does. Yeah, and grow up. That's what martial arts also does for a lot of people. It grows us up. It gives us more maturity. It gives us the ability to calm down and not slow down. Calm down and not slow down. See the bigger picture. Don't see stars. Don't react. Learn how to respond. All that comes from traditional martial arts training and Kung Fu and Tai Chi, which is why it's so valuable. The question was always, why do they think, though? Why does the Tai Chi master really honestly think that he's going to get in that ring and it's going to be any other outcome than a 5-second knockout, 3-second knockout, instant knockout? Because that's what keeps happening. Shaolin is a very good movie concept. I'm sure there's some truth behind it. There's truth behind everything. Dharma went and sat in the cave for 9 years above Shaolin Temple and meditated. Didn't move. They stuck pins in him and everything. Didn't eat, didn't sleep, didn't go to the potty. After 9 years, he came down and he taught the Shaolin monks. And then the Shaolin monks were getting beat up by the local bandits and the thugs. So then Dharma, who was enlightened and wise, said, look, you guys go get a stick. I'm going to teach you how to do some. I had to bounce like that because it's Kung Fu. I'm going to teach you how to defend yourself with the stick, and we'll do some Shaolin Kung Fu. And then from there, the rest is mythery. I was going to say history, but it's mythery. And then there was the movies. And think about the truth of Shaolin, right? Chinese Communist People's Party, whatever it's called. The communists, Mao Zedong. Someone tried to tell me the other day, well, China's not really communist. It's like Maoism. But they killed like 50 million people or 100 million people or whatever. So it's still communist. It's worse. It's worse than what Lenin did. Anyway, I digress. But the Chinese Communist Party shut down the Shaolin, probably killed the monks, starved them to death or whatever, because they don't have they got rid of religion. They're atheists. They need control of the people, so they can't have a religion. So what happened to the Shaolin monks in all those years that there was nothing to eat? Because the communists don't have a system for feeding people. They have a system for controlling people. They disappeared. This is true. It's factual. Look it up. And some people say, oh, they went underground. And now when you go to Shaolin, they're all back. And all those monks, they're out there dragging stuff with you've seen the pictures, right? And then they're lifting stuff up with their genitalia, and they're dragging stuff, and they're out there, and they're walking on their head, and they're walking up and down and stuff. Those are all performers. Those are all actors that they've hired to reenact that. It's just like here in the States, if you go to like Gettysburg, there's a bunch of old men walking around in Civil War costumes and fake guns that don't work anymore, and they're reenacting. And that doesn't mean that they're not great martial artists. They really probably are. They're probably doing wushu mostly. But the point is, what's real and what's the word? What's fantasy, right? What's fun to watch? What's interesting? What's entertaining? And I think that a lot of the Shaolin, because like I did, Kung Fu theater every Friday night at midnight, every Friday night for like probably 20 years of my life, I watched Kung Fu movies. I love Kung Fu movies. I love the whole thing about the Shaolin. But is it real? Well, because they're tough dudes, right? Because a lot of the things that they do in those demonstrations, and they're, pushing the spear on their throat, and they're breaking the boards over their head, and they're extremely strong. They're like ballet dancers, because wushu is kind of, in my mind, wushu is more like ballet, right? It's acrobatic, but it's also tons of muscle control. So you're right. If they learn how to fight, but then they would just become an MMA fighter, and then you'll be talking about two different things. Or maybe not. So anyway, keep this conversation going. Please put your comments in the comment section below. Share this so other people can join us. And if I'm full of shite, say you're full of shite, Jesse, and put that in the comment section too. Either way, it doesn't matter to me. I just want to hear what you guys think, and really try. I want to make this a global dojo. I want to be everywhere. And go check out. I know I keep saying this, but go check out Sensei Emmett's page. Sensei Emmett, I feel for you, brother. He's in Ireland. I saw that they just locked down all of England, Boris Johnson or whatever. Tier 5. You told me about Tier 5 when they went to Tier 4. I said, they're at Tier 4. And you said, we're at Tier 5 since March. That means he hasn't been out of the house. I'm sure you've been out of the house to like look down the street, but you can't run your business. You can't go anywhere. So Sensei Emmett, who's a great martial artist, running schools for a long time, has to now shift to teaching and having conversations like this on his channel. So go check out Sensei Emmett's channel after we're done here, and throw him some love. Get him some followers. Get him some likes. And, and they keep saying, we go to the stores around here, we're all in this together. And I say, no, we're not. You're an essential business. You get to sell your groceries every day. I got to beg for toilet paper before it gets sold out. And then I go back to my martial arts school where I have no students, or almost none, because of the COVID. Everybody's been frightened out of it, and they shut us down for months at the beginning, but it's not as bad as Sensei Emmett. He's been shut down since March. And what is it now? A new year? That's ridiculous. Anyway, go check them out. Make this a community. Let's help each other. Let's support each other. It's a new year. Wong Jack Ma. I know. I'm not going to be here next week. I said too much already. I said, I think that the reason all these Kung Fu guys, Tai Chi guys keep getting knocked out is because the Communist Party is filling them full of smoke or something else, and they're believing they're drinking their own Kool-Aid. And maybe they're all going to come and get me too. I hope not. So, yeah, maybe they'll find Jack Ma in the next couple of days. Maybe he's in one of these giant yachts out in the ocean behind me right now. Wushu is fun. I love watching Wushu. All right, guys, put it in the comment section below, and I'll see you a little bit later. Thank you.